Hello and welcome to a new video on my channel. This is a live recording from one of my UX after work drinks on Instagram. I'm doing a live Instagram recording, a live stream every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Berlin time. And this is a recording from a super inspiring chat with Christo. He's the founder of The Future. He shares a lot of knowledge about design, about business, about creative life and how to live a great successful life as a designer, as a creative person. So I am super happy that he took the time to talk with me, and we had a really inspiring chat. We answered a lot of questions from the community, and I would say that this session was really packed with a lot of insights. So make sure to watch it and let me know what you think. What was the most inspiring insight for you? Feel free to share that in the comments. And yeah, I would say let's dive right in and enjoy this awesome chat with Christo.
Thank you so much for joining. Hello.
Hello. Hi. Okay.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm a little hot and sweaty right now. Let me move this light. I'll be right back.
Yeah. Oh, there's sunlight. Is it sunlight or is it? No, those are your lights, right?
It's my light, yeah.
It's
And there's
light,
sunlight.
right?
Yeah, it's still bright in here.
It's nice. Yeah, 10 o'clock your time, 7 p.m. my time. So quite late already. But so nice that you are joining. I'm super excited to talk with you again. That's so cool. So thank you so much for taking the time. I know how busy you are, so I really appreciate
My
your
pleasure.
time. Yeah, super excited.
Good to see you.
Yeah, so so for everyone in the chat,
Yes.
I actually met Chris 1 year ago in New York. I joined your workshop about business design, and it was super inspiring and super nice. I still remember it super well because we spent like one day together and you shared so many amazing insights about design and, you know, all the stuff you don't really learn in school. I don't know, I've never really learned that in university or in school or wherever, so it was really helpful for me. And this is the reason I wanted to talk with you today and hear a little bit about your insights in the industry, how you're seeing the design community right now, and also all the tips and tricks you can share. But before that, maybe we start with a super quick intro. So everyone who's joining, I think like most people already know you, right? But for all the people who don't know you, it'd be nice to have a super quick intro.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Christo. I'm the founder of The Future. That's an education platform that I founded in 2016. Prior to that, it was called The School in 2014. And we have this big, hairy, audacious goal, which is to teach 1 billion people how to make a living doing what they love without feeling gross.
That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, you're sharing like so much really great content on Instagram. I mean, you just started your Instagram account like 1.5 years ago, and it's like, you know, it's really crazy to see that, because you're sharing like all the content that people need right now. So I think it's super important like to talk about that topic specifically, right? Because I'm wondering like, how do you see the design industry right now? So what do you recommend like young designers who may be just starting out or who like started their first job? What are the skills you would recommend them to learn and how?
Okay, if you're just starting out, first of all, congratulations. You still have a lot of work to do. So there's a level of mastery that we have to achieve before we do the next part. So I just want to be sure that we tell people to focus on the fundamentals, just to learn what good design is, to read a book on design history, to kind of understand the different genres and styles before you go and lock yourself into one. I think from that place, that foundation of knowledge, a lot of wonderful things can grow. I also think you need to learn the tools really well. A lot of young people come to me and it's like, can I intern for you? Will you be my mentor? And you have to have a set of skills because I don't want to waste my time teaching you what you can learn on the internet. Plus that shows me whether you've graduated from university or you're self-taught that you've taken the time and energy and effort to learn something. That shows me potential. And that's really important because we mostly hire on potential these days. Okay.
Nice.
So you have those skills. You have that knowledge, however you acquire it, doesn't really matter traditionally or non-traditionally. But now let's talk about the areas of focus. The industries that seem to be in greatest demand are things that are dealing with digital design, product design, UI, UX, people who learn a little bit of coding or know how to talk about coding so that they make informed design decisions. As the expression goes, software is eating the world. And if you're designing software, you have the opportunity actually to be on the ground floor of the next Facebook, the next Instagram. They might bring you in and they might give you an equity ownership or an equity share of the company, which I think prior to this last 15 years was not even possible for traditional designers. I think this is really cool. The other area that's growing really big, I think, is, of course, video is also just in huge demand. So if you can help people tell their stories through video, you're going to have a pretty decent career, I think. That's just my opinion. And the last one, of course, is what you already mentioned, which is content marketing. Can you use these design skills and help brands and companies tell their story online and to be conversant in the social media landscape? And if you could do that, like if you think about a guy like Gary Vaynerchuk, last time I checked, he had an agency that's worth or does over $100 million of business just helping people with their social content. That's telling you how big it is.
Yeah, that's amazing. So yeah, okay, really great areas. And yeah, I definitely agree on all three, especially the videos. I think that's a really huge area, right? Also what we're seeing on Instagram, like all the reels, the Insta TVs, all the live streams that are happening. I think that's super interesting, but also a little bit difficult for designers, I think, like to produce content that's really valuable and helpful, like to kind of combine that with your personal brand. What would you recommend there actually, like, you know, moving to the other side, like for people who want to do like self-branding, position themselves on Instagram? What would be content you would like recommend them to put out there? They don't need to be like young designers, right? But like
Right.
middle age or even senior designers.
Sure. So there's a couple of questions that you're asking there, Patricia, which is, should you have a personal brand or should you just write as a company? And here's the thing. People don't fall in love with corporations. They fall in love with people. They fall in love with personalities. So whether you call yourself Chris Do or you call yourself the future, you have to write from a point of view. You have to have opinions and beliefs because that's what people care about.
Yeah.
I found it very difficult to write as blind as a company because this company was many people. I have different points of view. I'm a little sassier than most of my creative directors, and so I don't want to speak for them. So I found it very difficult to write on behalf of the company. So what we wound up doing, which is what most companies do, is here's this really cool project. Isn't this client amazing? And after a while, it seems very self-promotional, self-serving. And so people don't really connect with that. And if you're guilty of that, now you know why people are not engaging with you, okay? Now, all of a sudden, I started creating content. In the beginning, it was just really me writing for the future. So I made a conscious decision. I'm going to write it as if it's me. So when I responded to people's comment, I said, oh, I agree. Or I think that's great. And people were kind of put off by that. It's like, shouldn't you say we think that's great, or you're doing a great job, but just talking to the we? I said, well, no, because I want to let you know it's me responding to you, not an army of people.
Yeah.
So the tone of voice was very personal. And I think people were a little shocked that, wait, are you really the person responding to all these comments? I'm like, yeah, how do I prove it to you? Let me insult you then you'll know it's me. Because then at least it's consistent with my personality, right? Let me be super critical, right? Let me be sarcastic, then you'll know it's me. Okay, now, if you've got the skills, you have a body of work and experience, the best thing that you can do for your company is to build that personal brand, to let people know who you are behind the work, because that matters to us, if not as much, more so than the work itself. Like, we know that out there in the world, there are thousands, hundreds of thousands of really qualified designers. But why does somebody hire Collins? Why does somebody hire this other agency or Sagi Haviv? Why do they do that? Because they connect with their story, their ethos, their philosophy, not just the body of work. So you do need to do that. Okay, we talk about social media. People talk about how do I become an influencer? Everyone wants to be an influencer.
No.
Okay, to be an influencer, you have to be influential. Influential people have ideas. They help people. They create things. So don't chase the influencer part. Try to be a really great teacher. Start there, because teachers are very influential.
I mean, I think it's a good point, right? Like bringing value to others, and this is like what you are doing and the future is doing, like bringing like so much value to people and teaching so much. Um, but I'm seeing like so many people trying to teach on Instagram, and I'm not really sure if they know what they're talking about. I don't know if that's really valuable.
True,
Their content is not
true.
new. So I'm wondering what all the people should do who don't maybe even have the skills to teach. How should
Right.
they present themselves?
Right. So I heard this recently on a webinar, and I forget his first name, but his last name is Quick, Kwik, and he's a memory master, and he was talking about this. He says the best teachers are the best students. The
Mm.
best students are the best teachers. So let's talk about this. I hear you, Patricia. I'm also annoyed by these people who actually haven't learned anything or just regurgitating something that they saw actually on Instagram, and they're just reposting it and making it uglier. Well, the world doesn't need more of that. You're not being influential. You're just being a poor copy. It's very derivative, and the work is not inspiring at all. Okay, you're just showing that I'm really lazy, I have no new ideas, and I'm a really bad designer, because the original post was much better. So we don't want to do that. So here's the thing. If there's something that you want to talk about, like say typography or graphic design or UI, UX, when you write something, and you should start with writing, take a moment to research it. Like, go outside of Instagram, go watch a couple of videos, read an article, read a book, add something to it. So when you
Yeah.
copy from one source, it's just a copy, and it's a poor copy. But when you copy from many sources, that's what Austin Kleon would say is good stealing.
Yeah.
And good stealing borrows from many places and brings it together. You know, my
Yeah.
wife and I, we were hiking yesterday. We're talking about this book. The book is called The Coaching Habit. And in The Coaching Habit, Michael Bungay-Stanier shares many ideas from other influential authors and writers. And she's like, he basically summed up all the key points from this other book. And do you think that's annoying? Do you think that other author feels like, God, you're just ripping off my work? And I said, no, honey. First of all, this is how the world works. No idea is new. Because when you go into research mode, what are you doing? You're just learning from other people. You're borrowing from others' ideas. But what Michael has done is he's succinctly wrapped it up, and he's tied it in a way that the narrative structure is consistent. It flows from one idea to the next. And he does what's very important for everybody that's listening right now. He cites and references his source material. And
Yeah.
that way, I, as a reader, I see a really cool idea. What I do is I flip to the back of the book of books that I love, and I buy all the books that they list. And that's why you can't see it, but there's a bunch of books over there. There's a bunch of books over here. I'll prove it to you right now. Hopefully, hold on, we'll be right back. Okay, so these are just some of the books that I literally have right next to me. It's like some books I've read. Actually, I've read almost all of these books, right? And I have more to go
Nice.
through. So this is what I do.
Amazing.
You look in the back and you read more books. So all these young influencers who want to be teachers, first of all, understand that teaching is a skill that you develop, that it's hard. It's a craft. Before I made my first Instagram post, I taught for 15 years at Art Center. I have
Yeah.
had a lot of practice teaching, figuring out what works and what doesn't. And what you think works isn't always what the other person responds to. So you need to practice. So I don't want to discourage anybody.
Yeah.
If you're new, even if you're 17 years old and you're like, Chris, I heard you. I want to teach. I want to share what it is I know. I've been learning. I've been reading. So I'm contributing to this dialogue in positive, generative ways versus being derivative and copying other people and in some cases plagiarizing, not giving credit to
Mm-hmm.
people. I don't want you to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. And I think it's a good point, like reading like and bringing some value just by like summing things up, for example, or combining different ideas from different books. Um, so like how many books do you usually read every month? What would you say?
Okay. I'd like to read more, but I don't actually read that often, and I read in inconsistent spurts. There will be a weekend. Sometimes I'll read 2 books in a weekend. I'm getting much better at reading these days. But that's
Yeah.
not average, okay? But I'll tell you this much. I think this year I've read more books, or maybe the last 2 years, I've read more books than my entire lifetime. So right now I'm
Wow.
48 years old. So in between 46 and 48, I've read more books than I've read in my entire lifetime. So my rate of reading is increasing because I love reading now. Reading used to be a chore. Reading was an assignment that a teacher gave you that you had to report back on. And so it made it not fun for me. Plus, I didn't
Yeah,
get to
makes sense.
choose I didn't get to choose the books that I'm interested in, right? So this is a
Yeah.
wonderful book for people who want to learn how to teach. This is a wonderful book. It's called the Workshop Survival Guide. And I bought this book on Amazon purely based on this cover and a suggested thing. It didn't get a lot of reviews. It's not, I bought it because this looks interesting. I want to learn how to run workshops, so I should read about this
Yeah.
versus what many people do, which is like, I'm going to teach you how to run workshops. And you've not even produced one workshop in your life.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Okay. Okay, that's super, super interesting. And I realized that I'm very similar. Actually, I need to read something first and then I
Yeah.
can use it. There are other
Yeah.
people who need to they don't need to read about it. They just do something, they learn, they fail, they're coming up with their own insights. But there are people like us who need to read something first and make notes maybe, or how do you remember those things? Do you make notes or comments, or how do you make that?
Yes, for sure. Okay. Let me get this out. All right. A couple of things here. There are some people who err on the opposite side, which is they don't post a single thing. All they do is read, 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 and they just consume. And I call that information hoarding. You've not done
Hmm.
anything with it. You have to convert it to something. The first
Yeah.
way of converting it is to write notes. It helps you to strengthen what you've learned, to kind of store it here. And that's really important. So I do take notes. And, it's funny because my son has these notebooks, and it's kind of ugly. I haven't used these notebooks in a long time. And I
From
used to
school, I
take
know
notes.
that from school.
Right? Yeah. I
Hmm.
used to take notes here, but then I have a stack that's like this high of loose notes, and I don't like combing through it trying to find the one idea that I need to talk about. At least this way, it's kind of back in an old school notebook, and I'll show you. I mean, it's pages and pages of notes and ideas. Every time I have a thought, I write it down. Okay. And I should be better at this. I should be really recording this digitally so I don't have to do this twice. But there's just something wonderful about the act of writing and remembering. And people
Yeah.
say like typing is not the same because typing is
Yeah.
abstract. This doesn't mean anything to your brain, but drawing that letter makes you remember it better. Plus, I could just go really fast and I could do this anywhere. Doesn't require
Yeah.
batteries. This works for me. So I do take lots of notes, and then when I feel like I got something, I'll go and type it up, and maybe I'll make a carousel out of it. Who
Nice.
knows?
Nice. So this is
Hmm.
also your way how to remember things, like making a carousel out of it, right? Because then you need to
Yes,
rethink stuff as well, right?
yes.
Nice. Are you still
I,
doing the post your own, or do you have like people helping you right now? Because there are still new posts every day, right?
yes, so I still do it all myself. Most of the content that you see that looks like it comes from me actually does come from me. I have a team,
Hmm.
but the team really helps to bring that to fruition. As far as
Yeah.
Instagram is concerned, it's mostly a mix of posts that I'm writing and producing and guest posts. So a little while ago, I tried this experiment to see if people would like to hear from other people. And plus, it took away some of the pressure off of me to produce something every single day. And I like to try to be consistent in that way. So I shared a few posts, and to my surprise and my delight, people liked it. I thought they were going to get angry at me, like, who are all these posts? We came here for you, but they liked it. And there's a side benefit that I didn't think about. People say it's actually very nice that I use my platform to put a spotlight on smaller creators.
Yeah.
And that's
I
kind of
agree.
nice,
Yeah.
right? So, okay, it's a win-win for everybody. You get to learn something new. I don't have to write something every single day, so I only write when I feel like it's worthwhile to share. And it helps people. And this is really cool because some creators had a small audience, and then by using a little bit of the leverage I have, their audience had tripled in size. And I was like, this is fantastic. So I'm
Hmm.
excited for them. And some people, and you may know this in the beginning, when you create stuff and nobody cares, nobody shows up, and you're like, God, nobody cares about what I'm doing. I'm not worthy of being liked. But sometimes it's just you need a little push and a jump start. So I know many creators, I've shared posts and they had like maybe 200 followers. All of a sudden now they have 1,200. That's a massive gain for them, and it makes them feel a lot better about themselves. My
Yeah.
whole expression, or what I say to them, is this: you had really good content. You just need a little help getting it out there. That was all it was. So,
Yeah.
feel more confident about what you're doing. It was good. Don't worry that people didn't show up just yet.
Yeah, yeah, so well said. Yeah, I completely agree. And it's always nice to have like to see good posts, right? And also to see good creatives out there on Instagram because sometimes you
Yeah.
you just don't see them, and or you find an account and it's super small but the content is actually pretty nice, and some other accounts
Yes.
are really big but the content is not that unique, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's super nice that you are promoting younger designers, especially when they're producing really good content and are super passionate about the topic and want to get
Hmm.
better.
Hmm.
I like
Hmm.
that. That's super nice. um, I actually asked the community before our live stream if they have some questions, and of course, I got a
Okay.
lot of questions. And
Great.
one, yeah, great. So everyone was super excited
Hmm.
for our chat,
All
including
right.
me, of course. And one question most people asked was about freelancing or working at a company. I remember that we talked about that in the workshop we did about like how to talk with clients, when is a good point to do your own thing, what kind of skills do you actually need, what kind of thoughts you need to, I don't know, have thought kind of before you start as a freelance designer. What would you
Hmm.
recommend people if they're thinking about like moving to a freelance design world, whatever kind of design area they are working on right now?
Okay, so let's have a conversation about this. Okay, Patricia.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing is, I'm going to make an assumption that you're working full time somewhere and you're thinking about maybe working for yourself. Is that the idea?
So, like, I personally, I'm working freelance, right? I worked at an
Yeah.
agency and then
Okay.
I moved to freelance, so I'm actually quite happy about that. Although I don't know, I mean, you never really know. I could also see myself like working somewhere, but I know about the struggles, like moving to
Hmm.
freelance and having like all the other tasks coming up to you, needing to deal with clients and all the admin stuff and social media and all those kind of things. So I know from people who are thinking about like they're working in a company and they want to go to freelance life as well, but
Hmm.
they're not really sure about that. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I have my own opinion about like how to, what is important, but I'm super curious to hear like your view on that or what you would recommend people, especially if they're more or less a little bit younger, so not like super
Yeah.
senior people.
Okay. There are some wonderful things about working for somebody. Steady pay. You don't have to
Mm-hmm.
worry about payroll. You don't have to worry about inter-office politics and management and rent and all the other kinds of things you have to worry about if you run your own company. So the
Yeah.
first thing I just want you to realize is to, while you're employed somewhere, to maximize that experience by inviting yourself to client meetings, inviting yourself to the strategic kickoffs when they write the creative briefs, to be able to squeeze the most out of these opportunities so that you can grow. The mistake would be like, I'm just doing the creative work and then I'm going to start a company. And
Mm-hmm.
basically, you've thrown away the entire opportunity of learning how to manage and run companies, right?
Yeah.
So I have secret diabolical plans for everybody that wants to quit their job. So I'm going to share it with you, and then we can talk about it a little bit more. Plan
Yeah.
number one is you need to see how the business, you have to see how the sausage is made. You need to understand and look at the business part first. If you work in a big enough company, there's going to be at least another person that's just like you who can't grow anymore in the company, who's also thinking similar things, but maybe is not as courageous as you. So you need to find out who those people are because they're going to be your future collaborators. Okay? Now, the next thing is before you quit or anything like that, what I want you to do is I want you to start to build up your personal website, your personal brand, so that people get to know who you are. This can be a problem for many people because they have contracts, work agreements that you're not allowed to show this work on your own site. And that makes a lot of sense. People have to protect their work. So use this time to start to develop some personal projects, projects that you've always wanted to do, tasks or things you've never done that like, I wish somebody would let me do this, and do it. Do it on your own time. This is the
Yeah.
cleanest, most ethical way to produce your own work. Okay, so now you're building a little bit of following and some people start to reach out. There's a uncomfortable period in between these two states where you have a full-time day job and you have a part-time freelance job, and it's a lot of work for you. So you have to commit to this. It's going to be working on Saturdays and Sundays. It's going to be working late at night. People talk about the 9 to 5 and then the 5 to 9, or like where you're like working till those crazy hours. So you have to embrace that a little bit. And when you
Mm-hmm.
get enough work, you feel like this is going pretty good. it's time to potentially leave. And the way I want you to leave your company is to leave it on the best of possible terms. Because guess what? The number one referral of work for you will be from your previous employer. If you handle this correctly, what's going to happen is we love Patricia, we love Jimmy, we love Bobby and Mary. We can't do this work. It's too small. We don't have enough capacity. Let's just refer to them. And this is exactly what's happened to me. Year one, I had no clients. My clients came from every other place I worked at prior to that. So this is how I started to build up a body of work for myself. And this is how you would go from A to B.
Good point. And honestly, this is exactly the way how, I mean, not exactly, right? Like, but more or less the way how I tried to do it back
Mm-hmm.
then. I was working freelance on the side, and this was really crazy. So after, like, really from like 6 to 10 every day, and
Yeah.
also on the weekends. So it was crazy for a year or so. So I went nuts at some point. And but yeah, this definitely make the difference to start with projects right away, because most of the clients I worked with during that time hired me afterwards. So I never had the point where I was like, okay, I don't really know how to get clients or so, because I already started all the connections during my normal work.
Mm-hmm.
Although actually the company I was working with, so the agency, didn't really book me afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't really leave at a good term, I would say. But yeah, I needed to leave at some point. So yeah, difficult, but I generally I agree it's the best if you were leaving on good terms, so you can ask for, I don't know, like follow-up projects, or if they need support, or you never really know, right? So
Yeah.
that's definitely a good thing.
Yeah.
I agree, right?
Yeah. Do the
Um,
best. Do the best that you can to leave on the highest note. Don't start to trail
yeah,
off your work. Don't take extended lunch breaks. Don't come in late and leave early. Give them
yeah,
your best. You owe them that, and they've been good to you. It's just you have new opportunities. And then you're going to have
yeah,
that really difficult conversation with your boss one day. You're going to walk into the room and say, Boss, I truly appreciate everything you've done for me. I feel like I've grown a lot as a human being, but I'm ready for the next arc of my story, which is to try to
yeah,
do this on my own. And I just genuinely appreciate you. I want to give you my notice, but I'm willing to stick around for as long or as short as you need me. If you want to get rid of me
yeah,
tomorrow, it's no problem. I'm ready to go. And again, bottom of my heart, I just want to thank you for everything you've done. Now, if you
yeah,
say that to your boss, no matter how crazy your boss is, they're going to say, okay, look, things change. Nothing's forever. And this person's moving on. And after they get over the initial shock and disappointment, they're going to be all right. You know, she was pretty good. And you're going
yeah.
to leave on good terms. And don't try to steal their clients or steal any employees. Now, remember that thing I told you before about a disgruntled employee or somebody that was also thinking about leaving? This is when after you start, you don't time it at the exact same time, but like 2 weeks later or 4 weeks later, they're like, you know what, I'm also leaving. And then the
Oh.
two of you wind up working together, and it actually works out pretty good. Yeah,
Yeah, that might be a little bit tricky, right?
might be.
Especially, yeah, yeah, especially with clients, right? Because mostly
Yeah,
if you work with clients like really close, they connect with you as a person. So even if you leave, they're like, we still want to work with you, right?
yeah,
So that might be a little bit tricky, but I
that
I
is
agree.
tricky. That's tricky. So here's how you have to do this. Client, former client, you know, because you were an employee, they call you up and said, "Hey, Patricia, we heard that you left. We love you. We actually don't want to work with ABC company. We want to work with you. Here's how you should respond. You should say, my God, that means the world to me. That means that I've done my job in building this relationship with you, but I don't feel 100% ethical for us to be working together. I think it's really important that I have this dialogue with my former employer, or you have it actually, so that we're above board and we're very transparent about everything. That I
Yeah,
didn't poach you and I'm not trying to take you away. People are going to respect you so much more because of that. The client's going to respect you more, and your former boss is going to respect you more. And call up the boss. Boss, just want to let you know, clients come and talking to me. I don't want to do this. And if you lose the account and they come with me, that's a different story. But I'm not trying to steal anything from you. And then
yeah,
they're like, wow, you know, Patricia, she has so much integrity.
yeah,
We can't
yeah.
keep the client. They obviously love her. So God bless. Go do your thing.
I mean, I think that's a really awesome tip, actually. That's a really good tip. And I think most people come in situations like that at least 1 or 2 times in their career where things
Yep.
like that happen. Could also be with like other freelance clients or like colleagues or whatever. So would your tip always be like be super transparent and talk it through, or sometimes just like ignore it?
No, I think when you ignore it, you create lots and lots of problems. We're talking about
Mm-hmm.
communication, right? So
Yeah.
every time there's a problem, something messes up at the job or client relationship falls apart, almost always people point out it was a communication problem. And the communication problem is this because we're not that confident, so we don't say it. And we need to say it. So if something is making you feel uncomfortable, just say, I'm not comfortable with this. And I'll give you an example. Okay. I think this is in 2015. I haven't done a lot of public speaking, I'm still super weird and awkward. I don't want to talk to people, but I'm going out with other speakers. So I'm hanging out with Jose in Portland, and there's this super dynamic, extroverted group of people, and they're all hanging out and they're talking. So there's three of us sitting at this one table, and they're just like, Chris, what do you think of this? And before I could finish saying something, they'll start talking again. I'm like, okay. And you know, the way my brain works is I'm trying to remember everything you've asked because I think it's really important that you've asked this and I want to give you an answer. And after a while, I'm just exhausted because I can't keep track. They just keep talking. Nobody's listening to anybody. And I feel like, oh, I'm starting to lose myself here. The old me would just sit there and be quiet. The old me might have just said, you know, guys, I'm just tired. I'm going to go home. I'm going to go back to the hotel. But the new me, the more self-aware me said, guys, I feel like I want to stay engaged in this conversation, but I can't because you guys are just talking a million miles an hour and I'm feeling fatigued trying to remember all the things that you said. Now, I don't want to rain on your parade. It feels like you guys got a thing going, but eventually I'm going to check out and then I'm going to go back to the hotel. But if you want me to stay here, just let me know because I'd like to engage with you. And then to my surprise, they just stopped like that. Like, Chris, you're right. All we've been doing is talking over each other this whole time and nobody's listening. And we want to hear your thoughts on this. And then I was able to have a conversation with them. So this is an example in real life. You should say what it is you're thinking. And to say it in transparent, neutral, nonviolent language without judgment. That's really important. I'm not saying you're a bad person. I'm not saying I'm a good person. I'm just sharing my observation with you and inverting what's happening inside my brain to make it external to you.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. It's such a good example, right? Because like it shows communication is key to everything, and it's so difficult to do it right. Because also the way how you said it was
Mm-hmm.
super nice and humble, right? You could also say like, guys, it's annoying, you're not
Right,
understanding me,
right,
I'm leaving, right? But you
right,
said
right.
it in a nice way so that they understood you and didn't feel offended. So
Mm-hmm.
this is, I think, sometimes a challenge, right? To say things that the other person doesn't feel offended,
Yeah.
but you still like, make your point. So that's
Yes.
challenging, but yeah,
It's
important,
not
right?
as hard as you think. If you say things without assigning value or judgment, it will come across as being neutral, objective, and sounding humble. I wasn't trying to be humble. I was just trying to say it
Mm-hmm.
exactly the way it is without judgment. And that's the
Okay.
critical part. If you're interested in this, I strongly encourage everybody to go on YouTube and search this video, Nonviolent Communication Workshop with Marshall Rosenberg. Watch it. It's 3 hours long. It's the best 3 hours you're ever going to spend. And he has
Amazing.
people say things like what they want from their partners, right? And there's a lot of emotion and energy, right? It's like, oh, I want you to pick this thing up because it's driving me crazy. And he's like, well, let's try to say that in a nonviolent way. And they would just go over and over. And then you could see like, wow, it's a real effort to go this way. But once you
Wow.
learn this, it's a tremendous skill.
Amazing. Great tip. I will definitely check it out. I think
Yeah,
that's super helpful for everything, right? Like personal life, also your work life, and also dealing with clients, right? And this is something
100%.
I'm also a little bit curious, like how do you deal with tricky clients, right? Of course you have the way how you communicate, but if things are going a little bit in a bad way, Or you think like, I don't know if I messed this up, or if like the client messed it up, or they gave like wrong signals, but they're definitely not happy with everything, or they're not happy with one of the team members. And you have the feeling that there might be some miscommunication happening.
Yeah. Okay. Watch what just happened here, Patricia. You just did this perfectly for me. Okay. Here we go. You said, how do you deal with tricky clients? That's a value judgment right there. So how do you deal with clients when you don't understand what's going on? That would be better. And then you're like,
Yeah.
when the situation is going bad, you don't know who messed up. Again, a lot of value judgment and not happy, you see? So how can you approach this now? Okay, so
Yeah.
if you look at it like, this is a bad client relationship, they're very tricky, and I think they're trying to say that we messed up. How can you then speak in an objective, nonviolent way? It's going to be very, very difficult. It's going to be very challenging. So if we say,
Yeah.
how can you resolve a client situation where there may be some miscommunication or misunderstanding? You see, then it changes your whole mindset to look for the
Yeah.
right problem. This is really critical. So you did that perfectly. Okay, so let's get into it more specifically. I've had many challenging client relationships in the past. And I find that when I take ownership and responsibility for the things that I'm responsible for, no excuses, things work out much better. But that doesn't also mean I take on the responsibility of everything that everybody's decided. I'll give you an example, real world
Yeah.
example. This is a multi-billion-dollar client. Like one time I said, you're an $8 billion company. They felt insulted. Like, no, we're a $12 billion company. This is a big company. And we were having some challenges, right? So the way I raised this with the chief marketing officer, this is somebody that's very important. I said, somehow, somewhere, this job has gone sideways. And we're upside down on this job financially. There's a lot of it I have to take responsibility for, some of which I can't. So we're 48 revisions into something that's supposed to be 3. And part of it is because we have just kept rolling with the changes. And so this is our problem, our fault. We also had a hard time onboarding the team, but we're in a good place right now.
Mm-hmm.
But that also, the responsibility that I think falls on you is you just making changes all the time. But our responsibility, so I just keep your responsibility, my responsibility, our responsibility is we should have told you we're way beyond like the realm of reasonable amount of changes. And so I just want to let you know, do you still want to continue working with us? Because if you don't, I totally understand. I will refund the difference of what you paid us and what we've done. I will hand over the project files and onboard whoever else you're going to hire. But if you'd like to continue working with us, I need the changes to stop. I also need you to pay us more money.
Okay.
What would you like to do? And then she, to my surprise, said, Chris, what are you saying here? I was like, oh, here it comes. Chris, what are you saying? We're not going to get divorced, are we? We still want to work with you. I'm like, woo! Okay, so all the pressure in the room was gone at that point. But you can see, like, I try to use as neutral of a language as I can. I try to take ownership and responsibility and was accountable for everything that we've done. And I would say each and every single one of these things so that the client knows that I know what we've done wrong. Yeah. And you have to be very thorough about that, because if you don't, the 4 or 3 things that you leave out, they're going to say, but you did this and you didn't do that. And that's all they're thinking about, right? So I go right in the beginning, what Chris Voss calls to do an accusation audit, which is what the other party's going to accuse you of, and you just bring it right up front. I have a young team. We were slow in onboarding. There were some missteps. We didn't communicate. And we let this happen, and here's why we're here. Once I said all those things, the biggest accusations they're going to throw at us, her mind is going to be put at ease because she knows we're not being fools. Imagine if I walked in there, totally different mindset, thinking, okay, you are a tricky client. You've made a lot of changes and you're burning us and we're going bankrupt because of you. How would my conversation go? It'd be something very blaming, finger pointing, and it's not going to be productive. It's going to be very confrontational, and it's going to be very stressful.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Super good points. I remember that I read the book about Chris Voss as well, but
Chris Voss, yep.
Yeah, I don't remember the like what you just said, so it's interesting. I definitely need to read it again, obviously. But good
Hmm.
point about like mentioning all the things in the beginning. I think it's a really good tip. Like,
Yeah.
one thing you can just keep in your mind, if you have a tricky situation, just remember that and
Hmm.
just mention that in the beginning. Um, so I think, thank you for the tip. I think that's super helpful. And there's also something I find interesting because you provided like two solutions, right? Like you could either do this or you could either do that, right? Like the two options. Um, was that on purpose? So is this something you recommend, or was it just like based on that specific situation?
Well, in most communication, especially with dealing with the clients, you have to be pretty clear what the outcome has to be because I'm designing the conversation to get to these two outcomes. I do want them to either fire us and say this is no good and I want to walk away from this because it's a nightmare, or I want them to say, well, no, we want to work with you and it's not reasonable for us to make all these changes and we'll pay you more.
Mm,
I don't know. The third option is really do what you're told. We're not paying you a dime more. We're not changing any of our ways, and that's that. That's not an option for me. And
yeah.
so that's why I designed the conversation like that. Now, if you think about this, every time a client calls you, they have three options. Do you know what all the three options are? So most people think the only option is to hire you, right? It's like, of course, a new client calls, they have to hire me. And you put all this pressure on yourself. You just need to realize they could hire you, they could hire someone else, or they could do nothing at all. Those are the three options. And when you're that clear about it, you're just one of three options. So don't put yourself to be so important and put so much pressure on yourself. So here's usually how my client conversations will go. I understand you have a problem that needs solving. I understand you could do nothing. You could hire me. You could hire somebody else. What can I do to help you make a decision that's best for you?
Sounds
Then they're going to
great.
say, right? It sounds great. Well, we
It
need to
sounds
know about
amazing.
price, Chris. We know about capabilities. We need to know how your team works. And I just want to get to know you better. Fantastic. Let's go through these one at a time. What's the most important one? Then they tell you, and then you just go through that.
Makes sense. Makes sense. I mean,
I
I
try to
think
be
that was
sensible.
like, no, that's amazing. I think like that's a really good tip, like starting that, right? Because like
Hmm.
also starting client communications, like your first call, your first meeting, your first workshop, how to do that. And I mean, there are 1 million ways how to do that. So I think this was a really good frame. So everything should just like write it down and remember it to have some kind
Yeah.
of an intro because that's really helpful, especially when you want to get started, right? And you don't
Yeah.
have an offer, there is no contract, there's nothing in the room, only a
Nothing.
conversation.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Because what you do there, and people talk about this all the time, like empathy, 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 empathy. And if you have to be, if you're going to do UX, you better be really good at empathy, right? You have to be able to walk in somebody else's shoes. So when a client situation comes around, we're all just so focused on ourselves, like I need to make money, who's doing what job, and this client better talk to me the right way. You're just so focused on yourself. So if you realize what I just said, which is they could hire you, they could hire someone else, or they could do nothing. What do they need to do? So I'm really looking at the world from their eyes as if I'm talking to myself, with myself, right? So I need to
Hmm.
know certain things so that I can make a decision. And the decision isn't always to hire you. So let's
Yeah.
find out, right? And then you just
Yeah.
go through that dialogue. Hmm.
Okay, great. And when do you start to talk about pricing?
Okay, that's a good question. All right. So the answer depends. The answer depends. If you think the client doesn't have a lot of money, talk about it as early as possible. And if
Okay.
you think the client, this is going to be a really big job, talk about money as late as possible. Okay, so you're listening to this, you're like, well, genius, how am I supposed to know if they have a lot of money or a little bit of money? Well, there are a lot of things that they do that tells you that they have a lot of money or a little bit of money. So when they call and they said, hey, yeah, my co-founders and I have a startup, no money, no money there. Okay, why? Because the co-founder and the founder is calling you. They don't even have assistants. They don't have a marketing officer. They have nobody in between them and you, meaning they have a lot of free time. People who have a lot of free time don't make a lot of money. You notice the busiest people make a lot of money. That's how it works, right? So
Hmm.
take the conversation again. Yes, so our team is looking for something. I'm the product manager for this thing. Now you know there's a team, they're one of many teams, and it's a really big company. So then naturally then it's a very big company and the budget should be quite high. So let me talk specifically about why now you want to talk about money early and why you want to talk about money late. You want to bring a budget early when they can't afford you because you need to just get rid of the tire kickers. You're wasting your time, you're wasting their time. So if you know this, here's what I would recommend doing. They call you, hi Patricia, we're blah, 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 and I'm founder of this company, and you're going to say, this is fantastic, thank you very much for calling me. Before we go too deep, I just want to make sure that you're prepared to spend north of $20,000 to do this project. Because if you're not, I don't want to waste your time. Okay? This gets rid of like 80% of the calls. Bye. Gone. You're not sitting there talking to them for an hour, which you can never get back. You're not going to write a proposal for a job that can never happen. And then you're not going to get depressed and feel like you've wasted your time and your life means nothing because nobody calls you back. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, why do you want to say it late? Well, I want to talk about money late when it's a big budget because I need to understand the full scope of everything that they're trying to do, the motivation behind it, and what it can mean for them financially if the project's successful. In order to do that, I need to talk about a lot of things. And so that's why I don't talk about money until late. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, really good point. Absolutely makes sense, and I think that was so valuable, honestly, because I don't know how many like proposals I wrote to startups, and in the end they said we can't afford you. Let's do something cheaper. Let's do something similar, and in the end we I don't know did like something small, right? So this is
Right.
actually what I learned in your workshop, right? Because you said like don't lower the price, just lower the offers. So say that you just do like a specific amount of the work. Worked like pretty fine for me so far. So this was a really great tip.
Yeah.
So yeah, this was helpful.
Good.
But yeah,
Now
good tip with the money.
let me expand on what you just said there, okay? In negotiations, it's
Yeah.
called the give-get principle. So when you give somebody something, you have to get something back. You can't just give it all away. So if they ask for a website and you say $20,000, they say we have 10. So you're going to give them a lower price. You have to get something back. So what are you going to get back? Let's reduce the number of pages by half. That's just really how you have to go. Or the give-get. Okay, no, we need all the pages that you're going to send us. Well, if you can give me, or if you can give me 2 jobs right away and pay 100% upfront, I can then also do that. So the thing that you don't want to do is to give them something without getting something back, because you send inadvertently a signal to them that you are overcharging them in the first place and you're not worth it. That's a danger, right? So if you go to a dealership and you want to buy a car, let's say you want to buy a new Mercedes-Benz and the car is $100,000, okay? And then all of a sudden you're like, I don't think it's worth that. And the dealer says, okay, we'll give it to you for $50,000. Now, this would seem like an amazing deal. And most rational people would be like, let me buy that. But that's not actually what happens. Most rational people then get nervous. Oh, was this in an accident? Is this a lemon? Is there a recall on this car? Did a person die in this car? Did something happen here? Because this just doesn't happen, right? So if you give something, you got to get something back. And this is a very important principle in negotiations.
Interesting point. Yeah, I honestly, this is super helpful. I mean, I learned that in your workshop, and it was super helpful for me actually to use that in my negotiations. And I don't know if you were seeing that on Instagram, but like some companies are offering this crazy like Instagram sale with like 50% off or so, and I'm like, and all the people are always wondering like 50% is a lot, so why is it always 50% off? Right? And this feels so strange, right? Because you don't need to do anything for that. You just get the 50% off, and you feel that if you would pay the 100% or even the 50, that there was something like overcharged, like you mentioned with the car. So something is not really okay there. Like, did someone die in there, or those kind of things? You don't really know, right? So yeah, like pricing is a tricky area.
Yeah,
For
I would
sure.
say the pricing is an art and it's a science, right? So
Yeah.
When somebody offers a product that's 100% and then all of a sudden it's 50%, what they're using is our cognitive bias, which is the anchor bias. So if they say this product's $1,000, but right now if you buy it, it's going to be $500, you think, I'm already saving 50%. This is amazing. So they're just using this anchor bias, which is we focus on that number because it's the first piece of information that you were given. It must be worth $1,000. So I'm just saving a tremendous amount of money. This is a pricing strategy. We won't go into that, but that's a pricing strategy.
Oh, yeah, good. Is it also
Mm-hmm.
from the book, the Chris Voss book? I'm
Um,
not sure,
I
right?
think, no, I don't think it's from that. I think
No.
price anchoring, I think Blair Enns does a great job about it. In his book, Pricing Creativity, he really explains that. So, and all you have to do is go on the internet and type in cognitive bias, and you'll find a bunch of things. Type in anchor bias, and you'll see.
Amazing. Great tips. I will share everything in my stories later so you can just check it out and find it there.
Mm-hmm.
So all the things you mentioned, yeah, I'm going to post that in my stories. So we don't have much time left. We only have 5 more minutes, and I have one
Right.
more question for you because
Okay.
I'm, yeah, we haven't talked much about you, but I'm honestly really curious what are like your plans for the future.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you want to do in the next years, right? So I don't know. I have never really heard you talking about that, so I'm curious actually.
Okay. So I'll tell you the real plan and then I'll tell you the fantasy plan, okay? The real plan is to continue to add teachers that we love to fill in the curriculum that we have. We only offer a few classes, and we know that to be successful in our mission teaching the world, we have to add a lot of other things. And I'm hoping that people will find that we've done a really good job of curating teachers, that they won't skip them because they've never heard of these people before. These are professors that I know, like, and trust, and
Yeah.
I hope people will do that. And so that's what we're going to continue to do. We're going to be running, once we're able to, real workshops, not just virtual workshops, where we can go and create this very dynamic, modern, innovative learning space for people to come. We have this huge building, it's 13,000 square feet. I want to invite anybody that is willing to travel to our city and to learn with us to kind of to be part of our our education community. I want them to do that. Now, let me tell you the big crazy plan. The big crazy plan is we make so much freaking money. We make just god awful amounts of money that I can help provide 100% scholarships to people in developing countries, because my mission is to help people and to build remote satellites in different cities around the world, small spaces that people can come and gather and learn, and video conference with us, and to produce videos and to make content. And then we have these little satellites pop up all over the place. But in order for that to happen, we have to make a boatload of money, and we're nowhere near that right now.
Yeah, but I love that. I think like the mission is amazing, I support that 100%. I think it sounds so nice, and this is something, what really makes sense and really provides so much value. So it's nice for everyone to hear that this is your vision. I think it sounds super nice, and I think you already brought like so much value to the design community, to so many people, like all the free content you're putting out there, and even the courses are like really good content, really great quality and affordable for everyone, right? So I think it's like super nice what you're already doing. You're doing so much for the community, which is amazing. Um, and you're going to speak at Adobe Max, right? So
That's
everyone
right.
can watch you there. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's
How crazy is this? Adobe Max is expensive to go to. It's expensive to attend. It's expensive for the hotels. And because of the situation right now, they decided to do this virtually and give everyone access to it for free. It's so cool. So I think
yeah,
when I talked to them, they had a couple 100,000 people already register, which is a crazy number. But I was thinking, why isn't 1 million people? It's free. And if you sign up, you can actually register to win a bunch of things from them. So there's almost no downside. You don't even have to attend if you don't want to, but you got to at
yeah,
least sign up. So I think that's
yeah.
really cool.
I completely agree, and there's some really cool speakers. So it's definitely worth it. And I mean, yeah, we have seen each other, right? Like last year, you went to the Adobe Max as well, right, with your booth.
Yes, yeah.
Um, so, and it's always really cool because there's so many sessions you can attend to, and you're going to give a talk there, right? Or is it a workshop? It's a talk,
It's a
right?
talk. It's a
Okay.
20-minute talk. Yeah.
Okay,
Hmm.
great. So I'm definitely going to watch you during the talk. Looking forward to this one. And yes, honestly, I need to say thank you to you for the live. I know how busy you are, so I really appreciate your time.
Oh,
And
it's my
like,
pleasure.
it was so nice, like all the tips and all the amazing insights you gave us. So I think it was super valuable, not only for me, but also for all the people who listened to that. And I'm definitely going to save the live so you can all watch it in my Instagram TV. And yes, thank you so much for your time. It was so nice to chat. And
My pleasure.
Losing time, I'm fading fast. I just wanna make it last. Try to let go of the past. I close my eyes, embrace the blast. Sleepless nights and headaches stack. Restlessness to hell and back. What's my purpose? What do I grab? A slippery surface, a heart attack. And sometimes you just gotta believe there's something that'll give you relief. There's something that'll have what you need, what you need. We're broken, it's tragic, we're not all elastic, but maybe there's magic. Believe you could have it, and I know of sadness, the anxious and panic, the